So good evening, everybody. Welcome. And just to introduce myself, I have been involved in frame running for a few years now, been fortunate enough to have a few elite competitors in the sport, but I've also been involved at the grassroots level, particularly supporting CP Sport, where they've been introducing the activity to young people and taking frames along for them to have a go and try out the equipment. So I've been involved at all levels. So I'm happy to talk about the sport at all levels, but I'm really particularly keen on us getting more grassroots people involved and moving them up into athletics clubs and developing the sport that way. So if we can do any of that tonight, that'll be an absolute bonus as far as I'm concerned. Now, the delivery I'm going to do tonight, I've particularly focused it on introducing frame running to people because I know some of the people who are here tonight have no knowledge of the event at all. So apologies to those of you who are a little bit further on, but I think we need to get the basics sorted for everybody. And hopefully in the future, we might be able to get together again and move on a little bit further. So what I'm hoping to do tonight, as you can see on the first frame, is to let you know what I consider frame running to be, a very short piece about the history of the event, because whilst it's interesting, it's not going to help us a great deal in developing our coaching or our work with athletes in the event. I think what is really important, though, is to spend a bit of time looking at the equipment and the athletes themselves to see what we can glean from them and to understand how, as I've gone later on, we get into coaching these athletes. Because whilst a huge amount of the coaching is the same as you would have for any other athletes, there are a few little differences that we have to consider. And then I think it's possibly quite useful to have a look at how I think the sport's going to develop over time. It is a new sport. It hasn't developed very far yet. You'll find very little documentation about the sport. So, if you want to find out more, by all means, look it up, but I don't think you'll find a huge amount. So the first thing to point out and to remind you is frame running has been known for a very long time as race running. It's only really changed its name in the last 12 months. So if you want to find out about the sport, if you want to look to see what's happening in other countries particularly, don't only look for information about frame running, but also have a look for race running. That way you'll find more of the small amount of information there is. There's certainly a few good videos to watch produced by other countries. The Netherlands, Lithuania have both produced some good materials. Denmark has also produced some very good materials. So do have a look at those if you get the opportunity. So whilst frame running has a new name, we also need to think about the equipment that's used in these events. So another bit of terminology is the running frame. That's the piece of equipment that the athlete uses to do their running in. So frame running is done in a running frame, and it's done by a frame runner. And we've got a frame runner there in his running frame, ready to get on with his training. And this is the event of frame running.
Race running, Matt Humphries in 3, Rafi Sullivan in 4, Tom Talbot. And coming home there in 1 stop.
So one thing you'll hear from that is there's lots of excitement involved in the event, and there are a number of people now taking part in it. It is, however, still quite a low number of participants in the event, and as I've already stated, we need to do something about that. We need to get more athletics clubs involved in frame running, and we also need to encourage the clubs that are doing frame running that aren't athletics clubs to move some of their participants from just people who use a running frame into athletes who are actually taking part in competitions. So what is frame running? Well, I downloaded this example, this set of notes where somebody described what frame running is. And I think the first thing to notice from that is it doesn't talk about frame running, it talks about race running. And that's what, as I said, you'll find in most cases. So when you read through all that, it does explain that frame running provides a piece of equipment that supports an athlete while they're running. And its main job is to keep them stable, because a frame runner is somebody who has a tendency to fall over if they try to run or if they try to walk. And some of them aren't even capable of walking. And some of the times I've been to CP sport events where they've taken running frames along and introduced them to schools or people from schools in an area who are interested in the event. And you actually see mainly children, not always, adults as well, mainly children, sometimes walking for the very first time because they've never been able to walk in the past, but put them into a running frame and they're able to walk. And in a few cases, even in the first few minutes, they're able to have a go at running. And what that does for young children in particular, it gives them an opportunity to experience something that they've never done before. It gives them an opportunity to have a tiny bit of independence from a wheelchair in many cases. It gives them an opportunity to do something that they see their peers doing on a regular basis. And importantly, it actually allows them to get exercise. Many of them don't normally get any exercise unless they've got a physio or somebody with them. But here's an opportunity for them to try and do it for themselves. And I think the last line on this little page is quite important. It says it can be enjoyed. And it says it can be enjoyed recreationally, but it can be enjoyed as an athletic event as well. And we offer an opportunity to do it at all sorts of distances, 40 meters, up to 5,000 meters. And in fact, we've now got frame runners regularly taking part in marathon events. So the event is developing dramatically. So I showed you a tiny little video before of the frame running. I'd like to show you the same video again, because what you will see now is a better view of what goes on in the race and the fact that these people involved are so enthusiastic in what they're doing. So I think this is the English Championships from a couple of years ago. And you saw 2 or 3 athletes taking part, not a huge event at the present time, but an event that's slowly growing. Okay, so if I'm so keen to get the event to develop, yes, I'd love to see it as a major event, but let's just step backwards and let's see what the benefits for youngsters are. Why should we get kids involved in the event in the first place? So the first thing is most of these kids are sedentary. They don't take part in many activities that are physical at all. Many of them spend their time in wheelchairs or similar piece of equipment. So it's an opportunity for them actually to start moving around, getting physical movement, which is going to help them with their respiration, as it says there, their aerobic capacity, and just to develop a certain amount of very, very basic fitness, the sort of thing which the majority of people never think about. We all do things like get up and walk to make a cup of tea, we walk to the car, we walk into work and things like that. Remember, many of these people have never had an opportunity to do things like that. So a great opportunity for that. And a lot of these children, once they make that initial move and get started, really enjoy what they're doing and very, very quickly develop into people who are enthusiastic about the sport and want to take part in it more. It also helps them develop their muscular strength. if they're not using their muscles, they're not going to be developed at all. But this is an opportunity for them to develop, particularly the leg muscles, particularly in moving backwards and forwards. And as coaches, we can think of various ways we can encourage these kids to do more and encourage them to do resistance work to help them build up their muscles and so also helps them to produce improved motor control and coordination without the concern of them falling over. So even ones who can do a little bit of walking, a little bit of moving around in walking frames, for instance, do have huge problems in maintaining that control, great difficulty in producing the movement pattern they want. But we're able to remove that worry, that concern from them so that they can get around, perambulate better without the concern. And all that leads to an improved general health. It's fairly obvious if you think about it, that if you get moving around, you work your heart, you work your muscles, you are going to increase your physical well-being. But maybe, I think for many of these kids, initially it's the psychological benefits of just getting involved and doing something that they see others doing is absolutely wonderful. So let's start by thinking about getting these beginners involved in the sport. And if we've got a beginner who's interested in the sport, let's offer them the opportunity to develop that interest by attending an athletics club. CP Sport are loaning out running frames, and they're going to children mainly who I know want to try these things out, but a lot of them are not getting an opportunity to do it in a sporty way. For many of them, they're not interested. That's fair enough. But I do know certainly there are some who are interested, but are just not able to find somewhere where they can go and take that interest and develop it into a sport. So I'd love to think that we're going to be able to help them do that. And this is going to be our first step.